There's a quiet kind of pain that doesn't scream. It doesn't lash out or leave you sobbing on the floor. It just sits there like a weight on your chest, growing heavier the more you try to ignore it. That's the kind of pain I felt the day I graduated. High school! You'd think graduating as valedictorian would be a moment of celebration, a defining milestone marked by pride, tears of joy, and family photos. But for me, it was a day that carved a hollow space in my heart that hasn't quite healed since. I was always the responsible one, the quiet child, the one who never missed a homework assignment, who turned down parties to study, who tutored classmates without being asked. I never expected applause for doing the right thing, but I did hope, naively maybe, that my efforts would at least matter to the people who raised me. Tyler, my younger brother, was the golden boy, not because he achieved anything special, but because he knew how to get attention. He had this carefree, mischievous charm that my parents ate up like candy. When he flunked a math test, it was because the teacher was unfair. When he missed a week of school, it was because he wasn't feeling himself. Every mistake was excused, every failure padded with validation. Meanwhile, if I got a 94% on a test, I'd hear, "What happened to the other 6%? At first, I didn't care. I told myself they were just being tougher on me because they believed in me. I thought maybe deep down they were just waiting for a big moment to tell me how proud they were. Graduation day was supposed to be that moment. I had been selected as the valedictorian after years of sacrifice, for years of staying up, until 3 a.m. rewriting essays, skipping school dances, turning down vacations so I could attend summer classes. I thought that when I walked across that stage, when my name echoed in the auditorium, my parents would finally see me. I imagined them standing in the crowd, waving, tears streaming down their faces. I imagined my mother holding a bouquet, my father trying to film the moment with shaky hands because he was too proud to keep them steady. That fantasy died the morning of graduation. I woke up early, too nervous to eat breakfast. My speech was folded neatly in my pocket, rehearsed down to the final word. I was in my cap and gown, pacing in front of the mirror, waiting for my mom to call up the stairs and say, "Come on, we don't want to be late." But the house was quiet, too quiet. I went downstairs to look for them and paused as I reached the kitchen. Music was playing. The back door was wide open. Curious, I walked outside and stopped cold. There were balloons, streamers, a banner made of glitter letters hanging across the fence. Tyler passed. D for done. Tables lined with snacks, soda bottles, and a cooler full of beer. And there, in the middle of it all, was my family, laughing, setting up folding chairs, my dad lighting the grill, my mom icing cupcakes, and Tyler sitting in a lawn chair like a prince who had returned from war. I stood there in my gown, watching as my mom walked past me, barely giving me a glance. She laughed, nudged my dad, and said, "Can you believe he actually passed English this time?" My heart cracked slowly like a fault line splitting under pressure. "I graduate today," I said softly. No one heard me. "I graduate today," I repeated louder. This time Tyler looked up. He smirked. "Oh, right. Congrats or whatever." I looked around for the envelope of tickets I'd left them, still untouched on the kitchen counter. "I told you weeks ago," I said, my voice shaking. "I left you tickets. I'm giving a speech. I'm valedictorian." My mom finally looked at me, holding a spatula. "Honey, we didn't forget. We just thought Tyler really needed this today. He's been struggling. I was speechless. "You'll be fine," my dad added, flipping a burger. "You're always fine. You don't need us there to be proud of you." That's when I realized they hadn't forgotten. They had chosen, and they hadn't chosen me. I walked away. No anger, just silence. The kind of silence that builds walls around your heart. I didn't call a cab. I didn't beg them to change their minds. I walked 3 miles in the heat in my full gown and heels to the school. When I arrived, my classmates were surrounded by their families. Hugs, flowers, cheers. I stood alone near the auditorium doors, holding my speech in one hand and my broken heart in the other. When I was called up to speak, I didn't stumble. I didn't cry. I gave the most powerful speech of my life. I spoke about resilience, about believing in yourself even when others don't, about finding family in unexpected places. When I looked into the crowd, I found one of my teachers wiping away tears. That was the only moment I felt seen that day. Afterward, some of my friends invited me to dinner with their families. I politely declined. I went home. The party was still going. No one asked how it went. No one noticed my tear-streaked cheeks. That night, I sat in my room and made a promise to myself. One day, they would regret it. Not out of revenge, but out of realization. I wouldn't be bitter. I wouldn't fight for their attention anymore. I would go where I was valued. And the next time they wanted to celebrate someone, they defined that the person they ignored had built a life so bright they could only watch from the shadows. The months that followed were filled with quiet choices, small, firm decisions that slowly drew a line between me and them. I didn't announce my plans. I didn't make a scene. But I began to disappear from their orbit. I applied for colleges out of state, got into 3, chose the one farthest away. I didn't bother telling them until my bags were already packed. My mom blinked in surprise. Tyler rolled his eyes, and my dad said, "You're really going to be that dramatic over one missed ceremony?" But it wasn't just one missed ceremony. It was a lifetime of being invisible in a house that claimed to love me as long as I stayed quiet, accomplished, and never needed anything in return. So I left. The first time they called me after I moved was when Tyler crashed his car into a mailbox and needed help with his insurance claim. I didn't answer. I was in a new city working 2 part-time jobs, eating dollar ramen. But I'd never felt freer. 4 years passed. I graduated college summa cum laude. This time I didn't invite anyone. I stood on a new stage in a cap and gown. And instead of looking for familiar faces, I looked ahead because everything I needed was in front of me, not behind. After graduation, I landed a job in Chicago, a marketing firm, decent pay, great growth potential. I hustled and slowly my life began to take shape. I traveled, met new friends, learned to cook something other than pasta. I built my world from scratch, and every corner of it reminded me that I was enough, even if my parents never said it. 2 years later, I was asked to speak at a leadership conference for women in business. My speech from high school about resilience and self-worth had somehow gone viral on a school SU2 page, and a talent scout stumbled on it. They offered to fly me out, all expenses paid, the night before. The speech, I got a text from my mom. "Saw your name in something. Are you doing a TED Talk or something now?" I didn't respond. The next morning, after delivering a speech to an auditorium of 300 women who cheered, clapped, and some even cried, I stepped backstage and finally did something I'd waited years to do. I blocked my parents' number. I know it sounds cruel, but the truth is, I had spent too long letting their absence shape my worth, and I was done with that. Months went by. I kept growing. A publishing company reached out. They wanted me to write a book about my story about families who break you and the healing that follows when you finally stop chasing approval. I wrote that book. When it hit shelves, it took off faster than I expected. Book signings, podcasts, one day, even a TV interview. That's when the message came from Tyler. "Hey, Mom and Dad are pretty upset about your book. They think it makes them look bad." I stared at the message for a long time, then typed, "Maybe they should have shown up." He didn't reply. Months passed. The holidays came. I spent them with friends who had become family. We made cinnamon rolls and danced in socks and watched bad Christmas movies on the floor. No backyard barbecues, no banners, just real, warm connection. And then one day in March, a letter arrived at my apartment. It was from my parents, handwritten. The paper smelled faintly of my childhood home, dryer sheets and garden mulch. My mom's script curved nervously. "We read your book. We didn't realize how deeply we failed you. We just thought you were strong, that you didn't need much. But that's not an excuse. We let you down. You were always enough. We just didn't know how to show it. I don't expect you to forgive us, but I hope you know we regret missing everything we should have been there for. If you ever want to talk, we're here. No manipulation, no guilt, just honesty. And it broke something in me I didn't know still needed breaking. I didn't write back right away, because the truth is, I wasn't writing this story for them. I was writing it for the girl who stood on that stage in high school, holding back tears in front of a cheering crowd that wasn't her own. I was writing it for every quiet kid who felt invisible in their own home. Eventually, I did call them. We didn't solve everything in one conversation. We didn't pretend the past hadn't happened. But it was a start, a slow, imperfect human start. Because the real lesson wasn't revenge. It wasn't proving them wrong. It was finally understanding that sometimes the family we were born into isn't the one that sees. We still shine, even without a spotlight.